Exactly.
Yeah. So I think we can now officially start this webinar. Welcome back. It's a great pleasure to have you with us again. And we are also very happy to have the privilege to have a conversation today with Gerald Bast, Director of the University of Applied Arts in Vienna. I will be very brief. I think Raphael already mentioned the rules of the game, so please just remember to keep your microphone on mute. But feel free to interact with us through the chat box. We look forward to receiving many questions because we will use them later during the Q&A part of the webinar towards the end. Now I think it's time for Raphael to introduce in more detail our speaker, and then we can start our conversation. Over to you, Raphael.
Thank you very much, Julia. It's a pleasure for us to host Gerald Bast, who is the president of the University of Applied Arts in Vienna, the Angewandte, the Applied. So Gerald is, you have been the director of the University of Applied Arts over the past 20 years. So you know there is really your spirit in the institution now. You're a member of the European Academy of Arts and Science, and you are involved in several projects about generating new programs about transdisciplinary and the interconnection between art, science, and politics. I have been lucky enough to meet you twice. You're a very inspirational speaker, and I know the University of Applied Arts, and I remember that there was the first mission we had in Vienna, in Austria, for the HI Innovate review of that country, and we had the possibility to interview professors there, including a coordinator of a bachelor at the time in complexity, and he was explaining to us the interaction between the University of Applied Arts and a digital, very advanced company in artificial intelligence designing systems for self-driving cars, and how the designers and the artists of the university were helping simplifying, mainstreaming, streamlining those digital systems to increase resilience while reducing complexity. What a beautiful example was that of interaction between art and science. Gerald, please conclude this, finalize my introduction to you, and tell us about the University of Applied Arts in Vienna and the ecosystems that are around it. Gerald, the floor is yours. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Raffaele. Very warm welcome to the audience. It's a pleasure for me to have this conversation with you. Well, the University of Applied Arts is going back to the year 1867. We had some years ago our 150th anniversary. It was established in the time and together with the arts and crafts movement in Europe. The arts and crafts movement, which aimed at the role of aesthetics for societal development. Very short explained. William Morris at that time was the mastermind. Connecting head and hand is still one of the main ideas at our university. And in the last 10, 12 years, as societal and environmental and economic transformations increasingly became visible, we began to focus on the role of artistic strategies and creative methods for transformation processes in society and economy. What can we do beyond the labor markets in the systems of art, design, architecture? What can we provide for new kinds of forms of human labor? which will come and has to come. So right now we have some 1900 students. 30% of them are international students from 60 different countries. Also, our staff is very international, coming from Europe, but all over the world. We have right now 450 staff in full-time equivalents, so science and art teaching staff. From that, 37 full professors and 200 administrative staff. A big library with more than 150,000 books and videos, art and design collection with 50,000 objects, workshops for wood, metal, textile, printmaking, video, digital photography, electronics, 3D printing, robotics, and coding. And you know, the latest keywords are leading to the future. We established a few years ago the so-called Angewandte Innovation Lab, a room for cross-disciplinary thought experiments. Laboratorium is a working place for experiments. We make these experiments in the brain of the people who are coming. And these are people from art, design, science, technology, humanities, economy, and politics. We have a very broad range of study programs in diploma, bachelor, master, and PhD programs, from fine arts, media arts, stage design, architecture, all kinds of design, graphic, fashion, industrial design, art teacher education, heritage conservation and restoration, creative writing. And going into the future, we started some years ago to get into new dimensions in terms of teaching, but also in terms of research. One of the first was social design with a subtitle Arts as Urban Innovation. And with this, we try to show and research about what can art, design, architecture in combination with various fields of urbanism, medicine, etc., for developing of cities. Maybe I will talk about that later on. We have started a program in art and design. We started a program in cross-disciplinary strategies with the speaking subtitle, Applied Studies in Arts, Science, Philosophy, and Global Challenges. And the story of this program is quite interesting because already 10 years ago, I started to talk with my colleagues in Vienna from other university and talking to them and asking them, let's try to make some kind of a very interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary program, preparing people for new forms of labor which does not exist yet. And they all said, no, this is not really university. This is too broad, too generalistic. This is not what we think a university should do. Now we have it started already 3 years ago. I succeeded to get partners partly on an individual base from these universities, partly from independent research institutes. And it's a wonderful success. We have applicants from all over the world, from Asia to South Africa, from New Zealand to North America. And this is one of the most interesting programs we have, people tell me. And we just last semester established a follow-up program in addition to that what we have in Vienna as a double degree program together with Tongji University in Shanghai with the title Global Challenges and Sustainable Developments. And what we are going to do next year is to establish a new program in the field of game. We call it experimental game cultures, where we don't want to educate people who are working in the mainstream of gaming industry, but we want to educate people and prepare people to use and develop games as an educational, political, societal development tool, one of the roots of gaming. And the same we want to try in the field of museum studies. We started a program called Expanded Museum Studies, where we want to look at museums beyond serving the tourism industry. Right now we see in this COVID year that museums all over the world get a lot of problems because they are so much focused on global tourism. And there must be and there should be more than serving this field, which is important, of course, but also a museum should be also an educational and political tool for society in combination with economy, in combination with politics, providing cross-disciplinary thinking, providing cross-disciplinary exchange with politics and economy, with different forms of cultures and ways of cultures. So I think I stop now with this introduction.
Thank you very much, Gerald, for this very interesting introduction. And now, I mean, in the second question, we would like to cover a little bit more in detail what you have started describing to us. That is, the interdisciplinary platform that you managed to build in your university in Vienna. You already mentioned that to us, you managed to combine digital technologies with science, but also arts and politics. This is very, very interesting and relevant for our webinar series. So we would like to hear more about that and how you managed to do that. Over to you.
Yeah. Well, there are some key strategic points to manage this, which is, of course, not easy because we are stepping into a quite new field. If we don't look at the age of Renaissance, by the way, there was, I think, a OECD paper which referred to the Renaissance as a kind of need to look at what is coming to. So the first thing is you have to have a flexible curriculum. So these forms of curriculums we have on many universities in Europe and on many universities in Austria, which are very detailed, very fragmented. This doesn't work for such kind of programs. So you need to have flexibility for students and for teachers, flexibility for students to shape their own program. It's almost kind of a personalized shape of study program, and it's needed for the kind of teachers you get, which partly are teachers in the traditional meaning, but partly kind of facilitators, moderators, who together with the students, based on projects, keep on thinking, keep on communicating among students, and keep on communicating with partners. This is the third important point. Um, we are project orientated, and therefore we need to have partners from outside the university. So we are looking for various partners in non-profit organizations on administrative levels, from cities to ministries, and also from economy, from industry. TTT Tech, Raffaele, you mentioned this, one of them, this wonderful world-leading company, which is researching on these very delicate, let me say so, delicate problem of software for self-driving cars and other automated tools for human tools for interaction between humans and machines. There are a lot of other partners. Maybe I will tell you later on if I go to some examples of these programs. And then you, of course, have a bundle of people who provide expertise in form of introduction in the main fields of thinking and methodology of various disciplines. So we don't want to educate experts in artificial intelligence or robotics or genetic engineering or new forms of economic theory and praxis. But we want, and we think we have to give our students basic knowledge about the perspectives and the potentials of these mainly groundbreaking new fields. If you talk about genetic engineering or artificial intelligence or robotics. And we want to give them these ideas for being able, first of all, to communicate with the experts, and then to kind of estimate based on the other area, namely the art-based area, to estimate the potentials, what can be a possibility, a field of action if you combine aspects from different fields of disciplines. Normally, we are used at universities to look at one discipline or even on a sub-discipline. The academic career is going along the road of disciplines and sub-disciplines. You have to publish in disciplines and sub-disciplines, and if you don't do so, you destroy your career on the university level. And if you try to step into interdisciplinary projects together with other people, you also endanger your academic career, because there are very few, almost no journals, acknowledged journals, where you can publish these kinds of research. So we have to give them some kind of basic knowledge. What is the potential and what are the methods of these disciplines? But then giving them expertise and competencies in cross-disciplinary contextualization. And this again works if you step into a certain project, and the certain projects we mainly take from the big area of global challenges, from climate change to aging societies, from changing communication and politics by artificial intelligence, from what is happening in terms of biology in combination with AI and so on. So this is the basic idea, how we organize these programs. It's not easy. It's a permanent learning process, a learning process which has to be undergone by the students, by the teachers, and by administration as well. But I think we are on a very good way, and the interest which we get from all over the world, from renowned universities. I told you from Tongji, but we also have interest from US universities and others in Europe. Very traditional. This gives us not only hope, but we are convinced that this is the right way to go. Not instead of disciplinary knowledge and research and education, but in addition to that. This is important. And maybe I tell you some examples of these kinds of programs. The first one we started was a very traditional one, industrial design. We still call it industrial design, with a informal subtitle, Design Investigations. And we started this with hiring a futurist and designer as professor and head of this department. Anab Jain, one of the most interesting people in this area, a TED speaker and futurist researcher, exhibition designer, etc., filmmaker. She is heading this department and this program, and they want to explore design's role within society, culture, politics, and environment. And we realize that industry now is more about data and shaping data and using data for different areas than about physical objects. The largest industry companies are companies which are dealing with data and not with oil and not with automotive production, etc. So this we have to have in mind if we talk about industrial design. So this was the first step. Second step was a program called Art and Design, investigating relations between different artistic and scientific representational cultures. So we have collaborations with research institutes like this TTT, or the Institute for Radio Medicine at the Medical University in Vienna, or the Institute of Molecular Biotechnology, or with CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, where we have the Large Hadron Collider. And the group of students and teachers were there 1.5 or almost 2 years. You forget the time with COVID. It's almost 2 years. And they spent there 2 weeks looking at what is happening there, talking with the researchers, and came back as totally different people with a full range of new mindsets. And there they had the basis for new kind of thinking, and they made an exhibition as the outcome of this collaboration, which brought big interest in Vienna, and not only in Vienna. The next thing was social design. I mentioned art as urban innovation. We must not leave the development of cities to people who are building roads and houses and automobiles. We are thinking and believing that the methods of creative methods and the combination of creative methods and urbanism and climate science and sociology brings a new dimension in city development. So we had projects like what can we do in cities, providing people with better opportunities to participate in city life, even if they are living with dementia, Alzheimer. We are participating in developing strategies, for example, in a small town in Poland, which is almost destroyed now because they are going to stop coal mining. We have collaborations with the city of Vienna, the city of Oslo, the city of Amsterdam, small cities in Austria like Hartberg. So this is about how can we emphasize the power of creative thinking and synergizing creative thinking with other disciplines for the benefit of the future of cities. And finally, this cross-disciplinary strategies program, which was till now a master program, and we are going to start a bachelor program right now. So we did it the other way around. And there are 5 main components: artistic strategies, science and technology, economics and politics, philosophy, and communication and cooperation strategies. And here also we have cooperation partners with the Research Institute for Artificial Intelligence, research institutes for human rights, the Austrian Institute of Technology, the Institute for Computational Perception, and so on. And the latest step last semester, this double degree program with Tonchi University, which brings a new dimension in cultural transfer into this program. Well, I think it's better to stop now and leave some more information for the Q&A phase.
Thank you, Gerald. Just this is really, really interesting, and almost I had in mind this question about how what you would say for a University of Humanities that wants to engage in digital transformation. What are the challenges that you can see? But it's almost the other way around now. You know that there are no challenges. You know it's really natural for a University of Humanities to engage in this transformation if you take your perspective. Nonetheless, I would like to ask you this kind of magic wand question. What are the challenges, how to solve it, and what kind of messages, after 20 years on the frontier of this discussion, what kind of messages you would have for policymakers that work in this domain? Gerald.
Well, the main task and the main challenge is communication. You have to communicate, and you have to convince people by making them thinking. And you can making them thinking if you give incentive to ask questions, if you make them doubt, if the road they are going now will lead to a proper aim if you think about 10, 15, 20 years in advance. And this is what we are doing in education. Education is a field where you have to have a lot of patience before you can see the effects. If you design a product and make it then in a manufacturing industry, you can see the product maybe 1 month or a few months later. Education lasts for years and years until you see the effects. And so you have to question the existing status quo. You have to speculate. Yes, you have to speculate, and you have to use imagination, intuition, and fantasy based on facts, of course. When you ask which kind of effect will you provide if you continue education like you do it like now for the next 10, 15, 20 years. We all know the world in 15, 20 years will be totally different. When we had this 150th anniversary ceremony, in my speech, I said, the world will change more in the next 25 years than it's changed in the last 150 years. And if we look what is happening right now, in a few years ago, we did not have Siri or Alexa. We did not have face recognition, and we did not realize all the problems we have and will have with these kinds of technologies. So we can imagine if we have fantasy and we have imagination power, what you need and what we all need in 25 years from now, and what people have to have learned at that time. And therefore we need to change education now. So now we know that we live in a world that is characterized by change, uncertainty, unpredictability, and ambiguity like never before. And the change is as quick as never before on a world and a global scale simultaneously. But by contrast, our educational institutions are mainly dominated by a culture of giving clear answers. Yes or no, right or wrong. You start at primary school to give the right answer, and you are punished if you give the wrong answer. And education is aiming, that's the history of education, at the production of certainty and the elimination of uncertainty. And since Heisenberg and his colleagues told us about the quantum physics, we all should know that it is not possible to ground our future on certainty or stability. Politicians like to talk about stability. We provide stability. We know what is right. We have a certain answer to all the recent questions. So what we need for meeting the challenges of transformations in terms of human labor, climate, economy, politics, the whole social environments, have in mind how society, how our social behavior changed within days and weeks due to the COVID pandemics. It was a dramatic, and still is a dramatic, change in social behavior, how we behave in connection, meeting other peoples. What we need are competencies like coping with ambiguity and uncertainty, using abstraction, contextualization, finding surprising combination and interactions, taking new perspectives, thinking in alternatives, applying intuition, imagination, and fantasy. I don't really understand why fantasy has such a dubious aftertaste in the scientific community. Maybe because you cannot quantify fantasy and intuition. Of course, these skills are aligned to art schools, but these skills are not the main tasks of our recent educational systems, from primary schools to higher education. We all know that the outcome and the results of learning in higher educations is unfortunately widely tested with multiple choice tests. If you rely on multiple choice, you have no possibility to look in between, to ask, to relativize. This is yes or no, answer A or answer B. We have to realize in these radical times that radical technologies have to be added with a kind of radical reform of education. We cannot recognize and analyze patterns faster and better than computers. We cannot run faster than automobiles, but humans can break the rules of inherited or given logics. Humans can live with and even utilize inconsistency and ambiguity. And humans can think out of the box. Machines cannot, at least not yet, and probably they won't be able to do so as good as humans. Humans can only win the race against radical technologies, if they use these technologies as tools based on human abilities, which machines don't have. So we require a new mindset, a creative mindset, and combined with a technological mindset. And we need the ability to synthesize these two mindsets. Education for a digitized world. We all know this slogan. We live in the digital age, therefore we need to know how to use computers, and we need to teach people in coding from primary schools to universities. Yes, it's useful to know basics of coding, and it's necessary to know how to use computers. But education for a digitized world is different from digitizing education. We need more students in higher education. Yes, we do need more students in higher education, but in completely different areas. We cannot follow the slogan, more of the same and more money for the same. This would be lead to a dead end. We have to stop the trend towards fragmentation in teaching and research. The history of education and the history of research is a history of fragmentation. And we have
Gerald,
to provide.
I think that there are some questions that go in this direction in the Q&A part. So Anne Rim, do you want to start?
Yes, I stop. I think I made it clear what what I mean, and
absolutely. But
this is
I saw that
what
there are
also, as you asked me to think about what should politics do. This is the very task politics could look at. They have to give incentives to make this possible. Incentives for the research area and incentives for higher education institutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're gonna jump to the first question that we got in the chat. So the first one would be, how do you manage to accommodate cross-disciplinary education with academic qualifications in view of the mutual recognitions of diplomas? Thank you.
Yeah, we have, first of all, high quality teachers and researchers. So when I talk about that we are teaching artificial intelligence or quantum mechanics or coding or biology, we've got the very best researchers in these fields. And it's quite interesting that rather people near the end of their academic career are willing to step into these strange forms of education. And so we have a kind of a quality assurance system. And of course, what we don't have right now is the quality assurance system in terms of approved journals, in terms of publication. And therefore we want and we are about to establish new international journals in these fields by the next years. So we are about to apply for that at the ministry, and we will start one this summer concentrated on architecture and related fields to provide a proper and high-ranking journal for transdisciplinary research in architecture, urbanism, and yes, global challenges.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll give over to my colleague.
Yes, thank you, Rector Bast, for this very interesting and forward-looking presentation. We were also wondering whether you had another set of incentives. You spoke about transversal journals covering diverse disciplines. Do you have other incentives for teachers and researchers to join these cross-disciplinary programs?
So actually, we don't have a problem to recruit teachers for these programs. These seem to be very attractive. Frankly spoken, I was not so sure at the beginning, 10 years ago, if we will succeed. But now it showed that we get more and more attractive for teachers and as well for students. We are going to start a new collaboration with Johannes Kepler University in Linz, which is most on top in terms of artificial intelligence technology and also new forms of new ideas in economy. So this is not really the problem. It's rather a problem to convince people, and this is a slow process, to convince other universities to step into this this new field. It's a challenge, but you have to dare it. And if you don't dare, it won't happen. But the more examples you have, the better it will be, and the easier it will be. Innovation is one. I don't know who it said. Innovation. It's the art of embracing risk. And we really embraced risk by doing this.
Thank you. I'll pass the floor to my colleague Anne.
Thank you. And what you said, Rector Bast, about embracing risk, I think that's a really fascinating observation, because talking about risk in the higher education sector is not something necessarily I think we do enough of. And how do frameworks incentivize risk and the right types of risk, I think is an area where there's a lot more sort of, these are the conversations that will help advance that discussion. So we've talked a little bit about sort of these questions about incentivizing teachers, and you're talking about other partners that you want to reach out to. In terms of private sector partners in business, you know, when you're working in sort of at the frontier and the bleeding edge of what's potential and not necessarily concrete, how has your institution built relationships with those partners? Has that been a challenge, or have you found that actually the private sector gets what you're doing right away and that you're able to build those relationships fairly easily?
It's not easy to build up some kind of these kinds of relations because I have to say that most industry leaders in small and middle industry, but also in large scale industry, are used to do the same, a little bit modified in the next year. So they are not really thinking in the big leaps. And this is the problem, not only for industry, but also for universities to find these kinds of partners. Look at the German car industry. They are avoiding to step into electric motor development. They avoid stepping into automotive or autonomous car driving. Now they slightly understand what is happening, and with this collaboration with the university, the Kepler University in Linz, which has a lot of collaborations with these kinds of automotive industry in Germany, we will have more contacts with them. I really have to say that if industry doesn't understand to change and to step into these new areas and to transgress these frontiers, like universities who think they can continue with a little bit of modification the next 10 years, they will become irrelevant in 25 years. They won't be able to meet the situation, the challenges of this next 2 or 3 decades. And some of the industry leaders, interestingly, from those companies who are in the digital area or in the data area, Google, Alphabet, Apple, they all say education will be the most important field of economy, business field for the next 20 years. They call it like that, education as a field of business. And they don't mean the education which we have now, but they don't mean education based on these aspects I mentioned before. So we have to decide now, and politics have to decide now, and university leaders have to decide now, if we want to have an education which is driven by shareholder value, or which is driven by the interest of a democratic society, which is not always the same, sometimes, but not always, I have to say. So this is the choice we have right now, and we don't have this choice for a very long time. So we are going to running out of time right now.
Like we are doing. we're running out of time. Sorry, Anne. Sorry to interrupt. I thought you were going to be on mute. Julia, do you want to say something before?
I just want to say that it's a pity that we are running out of time, because I think we had a truly amazing conversation. Thank you very much, Rector Gerald Bast. It was really, really fantastic. And thank you so much also for bringing into this very interdisciplinary conversation quantum mechanics, Heisenberg uncertainty principles, and reminding us that we live in a probabilistic universe. So thank you so much for all these ideas and thoughts this afternoon.
Thank you very much as well. And I really enjoyed this conversation. Although I know that we have limited time, but maybe it is possible to arrange together with OECD and the area or other partners next year a physical conference on this topic, which is most important, I think. And I could host this topic in this wonderful environment you can see in my back on the photograph.
We are in. We would love that.
Absolutely, with great pleasure. Gerald, it was an honor, as Julia said, to have you with us. Thank you, and thank to the participants for their questions, for their contributions. This video will be on YouTube very soon with our playlist. So this is an occasion, as we were discussing, an opportunity provided to us by the COVID life, the possibility to watch and rewatch ourselves in these interactions. Thank you, and looking forward to meeting you in Vienna, Gerald.